Welcome back to the channel and welcome to episode 23. Today we're going to look at a setback thermostat by Honeywell.
Hey Bruce, don't call me honey. And well, what?
No, the manufacturer of the thermostat is named Honeywell.
Ah, okay. I thought we were taking pet names to a completely new place here. What a relief.
For both of us, Keith.
Okay, so now that we have that out of the way, this setback thermostat that we're talking about here, we're going to do an unboxing and a review. What is the model from Honeywell that we're talking about, the model number?
It is the RTH 9585WF Smart Color Thermostat.
Bruce, I'm actually impressed that you can memorize that model name, the RTH, blah, blah, blah. So you called it a smart thermostat. So what is it that makes it so smart?
Glad you asked, I think. So it's Wi-Fi enabled and it uses the Honeywell Total Comfort app. This allows you to control multiple devices, including different thermostats, with a single app. You log into a portal through that app. It pulls weather information from the internet, as well as the current indoor and outdoor temperature from your thermostat. You can change the color of the background screen, and the device is fully programmable. It even has event messaging that can be customized so that you get notified when things like temperature extremes in your home, loss of power, and a lack of communication with the Honeywell environment for an extended period of time.
Okay, that all does sound pretty smart. Sounds pretty expensive though, too.
So that really depends on what you call expensive. So I found the device on special for $119, but I think it normally goes for about $185, depending on the day and week and month that you happen to be looking at it.
Okay, so how does that compare to the Nest? Like, I have a first generation Nest system in my house.
That's a great question. So really it's going to come down to the make and model Nest that you have, because they do have multiple lines, and as you stated, you have a Gen 1 device, and I believe they're on the 4th gen, or the 4th gen is coming out here shortly. And so in general though, I would say if you look at the highest end Nest devices and compare that to this one, this is both a step down in feature or functionality as well as price. So the highest end Nest devices, their learning devices, are really designed to kind of gather information about, when you're in the home, moving around the house, keeping the temperature a particular time of day and that at a particular level, and learning your habits. And that is definitely not functionality that this particular thermostat that I have got and we're going to install, that's not functionality it possesses. Now, one thing that this particular Honeywell device does bring is the ability to not have to stand in front of the device to make programming changes. So I can get onto the app, I can get onto the web, and I can make changes in the programming without having to stand in front of it, but there really is not a learning feature, as I already stated.
Okay, yeah, so that kind of helps break it down in terms of who each of these types of products are aimed at. If you're the kind of person who just wants it to, keep it simple for me, but do your magic in the background, then perhaps you're a Nest customer. And I must say that's probably why I am a Nest customer. Even though my thermostats are old, or first generation, I believe they were learning thermostats. That's how they were marketed at the time. And when I look at my app, which for the record, I never do, right? This, while we're filming this, I think it's like the first time I've done it in a long time. And I can see it has some of these features that we were talking about with the Honeywell, where, yeah, you can look at, I can see right now that my basement is 65 degrees and my main floor is 70 degrees in my master bedroom, or upstairs. We have a zone system, but up there it's 72 degrees. So it does have some of those features, although I'm not really using all of this technology. I'm just happy that it's happening, I suppose.
I think that's probably a pretty fair assessment. As I stated, Nest is on like their 4th generation devices now, and they're really getting smarter and smarter, right? They're bringing more functionality into that space. And of course, that helps keep that price, that elevated price on their high-end models, up in that $250 price range. The Honeywell really is kind of marrying that old school and new school together to give you, I won't say the best mix of both worlds, but it is giving you access to things like a portal so that you can adjust your temperature remotely. You're not bound by, standing in front of it and pushing buttons and doing those things. So it is bringing some of those features in. And depending on the model of Nest or other device that you're comparing it to, might represent a good value. Of course, I think when you're looking at this device at the $119 price range, it's a much better value than when we're looking at it at the $185 that you could spend. When we start talking $185, we're really pushing it into that upper echelon and starting to really kind of get into the Nest feature price range combination, and not necessarily getting all of the features that a Nest device is going to give you.
So, I understand you have an unboxing and review segment for us.
So as we discussed, there are some lower cost Nest devices, and so depending on the price range that you're looking at there, I think they're going to start about $130 or so, and they do have a little bit different feature set. When you look at the $130 model, you are going to lose that learning capability. That's for their higher end units. But they've got some other tricks up their sleeve as well. It gives you Google integration, the Google app for managing your home versus the Nest app when you look at that end. So really, it comes down to, is there a design that you like on the Nest side versus the Honeywell. Mine is a rectangular one. All the Nest devices tend to be the round devices. And so, when you look at those and you compare, it's really going to come down to price, and if you need those higher end features, and then on the lower end feature side, where you're going to find the Honeywell price at that particular time. Because I think it, like I said, it's a good value at $119. The value starts to erode a little bit if you're looking at that full $185 that you could potentially pay.
So, I understand you have an unboxing and review segment for us.
Absolutely. Then after we've done the unboxing and installation, we're going to swing back and get our final thoughts. I actually purchased this thermostat back a while ago. And again, this is a device that I researched and decided to buy on our own. We did not get this as part of a promo or sponsored video. So this is an item that I went and bought with my own money and going to install. We actually have two thermostats in our house. We have a zoned system for the upstairs and the main level of our house. And so we've got one setback thermostat that is really very manual in nature, and then another one that is more of this electronic screen. This one's actually a color screen one I found on sale. It's a Honeywell device, and what's nice about getting an additional smart device is Honeywell has got a website that allows you to connect up with your app. That app allows you to change your temperature. So one of the things that we did was when we were on vacation, we actually were driving and we knew we'd be back at a particular time. So we had set the temperature, it was during the summer, set the temperature much warmer than we would normally be comfortable having it while we were here, set that up very high, and then when we were on our way home, we actually, based on when we'd be there, gave it some time to let the system cool the house down, set the temperature to where we wanted it to be when we arrived, and we were ready to go. So this just really allows us to give us that extra flexibility and control for both of our thermostats. We'll be able to check and see what the temperature is set to and what it's displaying at for each of our thermostat zones separately and adjust those accordingly. So with that, let's go ahead and get this unboxed and take a look, and we're actually going to go through the installation process. And again, you're going to want to make sure, and we'll talk about this when we get the thermostat removed from the wall that's currently there, you're going to want to make sure that your house is wired to support a thermostat if you're going to swap that out, that has the extra controls, right? So there's 3 and there's 4 wire controls, making sure that the device you're purchasing is going to be compatible with your existing wiring, as well making sure that, if you have a heat pump, if you have air conditioning, you have a gas furnace, you have electric, just making sure that all of those things align in such a way that allow you to use one of these devices. So with that, let's go ahead and crack this box open. We're just going to cut the cellophane that's on it off and get this slid out of the box for us here. Let's go ahead and cut this tape here. And it's also got tape on the bottom, so let's get that. Let's go ahead and get this box opened up here and lay it flat, and it does lift up this direction. and that's a long flap. So you notice this is actually a pretty small device. So depending on the size of the thermostat you have in place today, you may end up having to maybe do a little bit of painting around where you put this, because just like ours, we've got a longer one that this is going to replace. So let's go ahead and get the rest of this opened up. And it does not have an additional plate that's going to cover up any more space. So you know, if you were hoping that this particular plate was maybe going to be longer, like some of them are, and cover up more space, it does not. So this is actually some of the electronics in that. It's also the mounting plate, and so it's going to make connections with the wires, and then you can actually take this portion of it off, and then get this separate. So you see they just go together like that. So let's go ahead and take a look at what else is included here. Along with our instructions, we also have these labels for the existing wires so that we can put those on and make sure that we get them onto the correct area on our new thermostat. So that's very handy, as well as our instructions that are included. So we've got some quick start guides. Those are usually the thing that you want to go find first. We've got some thermostat ID information, so this is a card with the MAC address. So it's really some information about when you go to set this up electronically, the information that uniquely identifies your thermostat from all of them that are made. So you'll want to make sure you hold on to that and put it someplace safe, because it's going to be information that you need as you set this up online. Again, we've got some additional documentation in another language, so if we need that, you've got it available. And as well, we've got some screws and wall anchors that it's given you in case where this is going to line up and go into your wall does not match up with your existing thermostat that you need to replace. So really not a lot to this. This is actually the user guide, and I believe this is going to be presented in multiple languages, which it is. So it starts with English, and then I believe has Spanish embedded later in the book. So we're going to put this back in the box for safekeeping. So we're going to put everything back here into the box so that when we actually go to install this, none of it's missing. So let's put our white wire in here and all the other instructions, including the quick guide. And I'm going to put this wall plate back into the box, and the holder for the thermostat itself, and it doesn't have to be perfect because we're just going to be taking this out when we install it. So this is all of our kit that we need for our installation of our thermostat. Next, we'll be jumping up to our master bedroom, where we're going to replace the existing setback thermostat with one that's got more electronics and the ability to be accessed via the web and Wi-Fi. So with that, let's go ahead and conclude things here and jump up to our master bedroom and make that change.
So here we are at the thermostat that's going to be replaced. It's important to go downstairs in my house, right, wherever your breaker is in yours, and flip the power off to your heating and cooling system, so both the breakers, so that there's no power to the system when you go to make this change. So my particular thermostat, we pull off of the wall just by releasing the clips. They're on the side, and the faceplate comes off. We're going to go ahead, after we've got this faceplate off, and go ahead and label the wires. Now, you don't want to go by the colors. You want to actually go by the connections that they currently are making to your existing thermostat. So it's very important. They've given us the labels. In my particular case, if they didn't give you labels with your particular thermostat that you got, then you'll want to make your own labels. Just make sure that you put the correct labeling on there so that you get the right cable connected to the new thermostat as it was connected to the old one.
All right, so we are going to need a flat blade screwdriver here, which I have on hand. We are going to start with RH. So RH is right here. I've got a label labeled RH. And we are going to need to straighten out our wires because this particular thermostat actually has straight wire connections that you put the wires into versus where you have to wrap the wire around the screw. Okay, we've got the RH on here, and one thing that we'll note is our RC wire is actually making a connection from RC over to RH, but this is attached to the thermostat itself. So we're going to hold off on doing anything with that at the moment. Got the W wire. We're going to go ahead and pull that one off. And I might end up having to get a pair of pliers to straighten these wires out nicely. But that should be enough to go ahead and get our label on it.
So that was the W. So we're ready to take the thermostat off the wall. In this particular case, we've got a screw here and a screw here that we need to undo. So the old thermostat did not have a C-wire that this thermostat is wanting to have. The good news is there was extra wires included in the bundle in my particular situation. So, and the control panel downstairs in the utility room had a connection for the X, which X is the 24 volts that C is supposed to be providing, and it is labeled that it's for the thermostat if it's required. So we are connecting that as the C wire. So we're going to go ahead and label that as C so that if we have someone else follow us in this work, that the cable will have that correct labeling on it, and someone will know that we're using this as our C wire. So there we go. That now has a C on it. And so from here, we're going to go ahead and put our mounting plate on and run our cables that we're going to use through that mounting plate. So we're just going to put the excess into the wall, and actually we'll have more excess to put in there as well. We're going to go ahead and hang this here. We do need to strip just a little bit of this wire down in order to have it exposed and make the connection in the terminals here. So we've got that all squared away. Before we proceed too far, we need to put in the wall anchors so that we can screw this plate into that, and we're going to go ahead and get that done right now. So we'll go ahead here and connect up our wires, and it's actually a little bit easier to do that without pushing it into mounting it into the wall. Okay, so I got my needle nose pliers. I am going to straighten a couple of these wires. What you can simply do is take the wire the lengthwise, find where the angle is at, and put it against that angle, and just press it down. So you see how now that wire is much straighter. We're going to do the same thing with the yellow. And this is pretty common that you're going to have to do that after you've had it installed in other thermostats, because a lot of the thermostats have the screw that you need to wrap the wire around instead of the friction connections that this style is using. Connected, and we just need to take our screws. Once I get all these wires situated here, we're going to shove all that back into the wall here. And again, we're going to go just into the wall here on this, my right hand side. And we've got the I'm going to step on this side real quick, and here we go. I do have an electric drill, but for something like this, I think probably just as effective to use just a small screwdriver, and this way we can try and control that pressure. And it just snaps into place. And I will run downstairs, turn power back on, and we should see the results of our work. Okay, as you can see, the thermostat has powered on, so we must have done something in this process somewhat correctly. So we're going to walk through real quick here the setup. So we speak English in this house, but if you speak another language, you can select what's appropriate for you. This is our home, and let's make this master bedroom. Heating and cooling, forced air. I believe we're standard efficiency. And 1 stage. And we have to do the Wi-Fi setup because this is a connected device. And we'll say done. And there we go. So I'm going to set this to our normal 68. And we'll set all the other information online for it. So for now, I think this is probably pretty good.
Okay, good stuff. You know, one of my takeaways from watching this video is that you really need to get a good handle on your wiring situation before you get too far along in this process.
Yeah, why don't you just give me a paper cut and squeeze lemon juice in it? I relied on the fact that the service technician had installed a similar thermostat downstairs, but didn't remember that the service technician had used an extra wire within the wiring bundle and connected that up to our controller. So that is something that I ended up having to track down and do myself in order to make this second thermostat, the one that I was installing in our bedroom, work like the one on the main level of the house that the service technician installed for us. Now, that might not be something that everyone watching this video is super comfortable doing. Now, fortunately, there was extra wiring that had been run when they pulled the cable for our original thermostat install. If this isn't something you're comfortable doing, then I would highly recommend getting your heating and cooling contractor out and having them take a look and make sure that something like this is going to work, and do that while you still have the opportunity to return the thermostat in case it's not going to be something you can make work in your particular installation case.
Yeah, well, I suppose I will cut you some slack then, but I think this does serve as a cautionary tale, right, for people who are watching this. You know, a little legwork ahead of time, isn't that right, Nessa? A little legwork ahead of time just to verify that your wiring setup and the wiring setup for the units that you're looking at are actually compatible with each other. Doing that up front is probably a really good idea before you purchase. So, reflecting back on the Honeywell device that you installed and reflecting upon that versus the Nest solutions that we've been talking about, which would you prefer? Which would you select going forward?
Well, that depends. I think you really need to look at the features of both devices and decide what's truly important to you and which one do you really want to put your money into. Looking at the Nest upper end device, if that's functionality you want, but the price is maybe higher than you want to pay, maybe it makes sense to, put that purchase off a little bit and save up and buy the more expensive device. This is something you'll probably have for an extended period of time, so maybe spending more money to get those features you really want in the end is going to be worth it to you. After all, as I stated, a setback thermostat is a long-term purchase. You'll probably stick with that same device for an extended period of time, so no reason to rush in, buy one, and then ultimately, since you've not done your research, get a device that you don't really want. Or one that you overpay for features that ultimately you don't end up using. At the end of the day, you really need to find the device that's going to work best for you. In my particular instance, both of our thermostats are in locations where, quite honestly, I'm not sure there's a ton of value in it sensing whether there's someone home or not, because those rooms are usually fairly vacant all the time. So it might not necessarily even know that we're in the house and go into that setback mode. Even though there's people in the house, they're just in other areas of it. For me, what I really wanted with this setback thermostat, along with the programming capabilities, was remote access. So one use case that we've actually leveraged multiple times is going on vacation and having the temperature set way back to either be way cooler or way warmer, depending on the season, than we would normally keep it. And for the example of summer, we've had trips where we're returning from a long vacation and the temperature set to say 85, 90 degrees in our house. Before we leave for home on a long drive, we'll actually set the thermostat to return the temperature to a more normal level so that when we return home, we're not sitting around in a very uncomfortable house because we didn't have the capability of doing that remotely.
Yeah, I hear you. It is tough to make a choice. I myself am going to buy a new thermostat system probably next year. That's what we're budgeting for. And we have some of the same issues that you kind of described. I'm looking at something that would allow us to be able to put additional sensors in locations where the thermostats themselves have sensors, but additional sensors in other rooms. But, you know, counterbalancing that is in the age of COVID-19, when the global pandemic, we're all at home. In our house, we're in all the rooms all the time. So I'm not sure having motion sensing in all of the rooms is very useful, maybe the temperature sensing. So it's still kind of confusing, but it sounds like that everybody kind of needs to make up their own mind based on the features that they really want and what they're willing to pay for.
Nailed it. So in summary, because I really didn't feel like we closed the loop on my actual thoughts on the device, we've been using it now for several months, and it's done everything I asked it to do. It gave me the exact functionality I was looking for. So with the price point that I paid, the $119, a price point that I was very comfortable with, I really feel like I got a great value for the features I was looking for. And, you know, other than the slight install mishap, and again, that was really my fault because I didn't look at that ahead of time, and something I was able to work around pretty easily. Other than that, it's really done everything I asked, and at the end of the day, that's what you're looking for when you buy something.
Well, good. So I think this is gonna wrap up another episode. We're wrapping up, Nessa.
Man, you're on a roll today, Keith. Correct again. Thank you for joining us, and if you would be so kind, you're still here. So click that like button because you obviously liked the episode, or you're a glutton for punishment. As well, if you haven't subscribed, this is a great time to do so. Anything else I've forgotten, Keith?
Yes, they should click that little bell icon. It looks like this, right? And that way you'll all be notified the next time we release new content. For Nessa and myself, Keith, and Bruce, thanks, and you'll see us next time on the next episode of Dad's Talk Tech.